Thanks for joining us today. We have Dr. Monte Hessler, and he is a chiropractor in Phoenix, Arizona. How are you, Dr. Hessler?
I'm doing great. How about you, Lexi?
Good, good. Can you tell me about your practice and how you got started in chiropractic?
I got started in chiropractic because I was an athlete in high school and college, and I was always looking for ways to kind of tweak or fine tune performance. And it's just, to me, chiropractic put a lot of things together. Obviously, the adjustments that we do, but also there's therapies and strengthening and nutritional recommendations that we can do that help fine tune people's performance, so to speak. I've been in practice I practiced a little bit in Southern California. I've been in practice in the Phoenix area now for over 30 years. I've been lucky enough to, on the medical staff of the Phoenix Suns, and do some work with mainly with the San Francisco Giants, but a couple Major League Baseball teams.
What's your favorite part about chiropractic?
That's kind of a simple answer. I mean, when you examine a patient, and you you figure out what's going on, and then you figure out the appropriate treatment plan, and then you see them respond, and whatever their condition was, you see it getting better and see them functioning better. That's still, like I said, I've been at this stuff for 30 years, and that's exciting as it ever was. So that's my favorite part, probably.
What's your least favorite part?
Well, I think it's going to be a standard answer. Documentation, all the stuff we have to do to be within the guidelines of documentation. Dealing with insurance companies isn't the that's not a real enjoyable endeavor as well either. So those are probably some of the biggest ones. So I'm sure that's a pretty common answer, I would think,
Yes.
anyway.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Um, so most businesses struggle with either money, time, people, or passion. And so what would you say is your biggest struggle in chiropractic?
I mean, in general, for the profession, just by knowing what I know by talking to younger chiropractors and those kinds of things, I mean, it's gaining a steady flow of, well, I'll say quality new patients. I would assume that's the biggest.
Is that a money thing? Is it just too difficult to do that
Um, you know,
financially?
you know what? I would think that probably comes down to a money thing. Because in other words, if you had unlimited resources and you could throw out all kinds of marketing and do radio and TV, and did enough SEO, so all your links showed up, or your web pages showed up first page of Google, you could accomplish all that or afford all that. Then I assume you wouldn't have a pretty steady flow of new patients.
So what's the hardest demographic to work with? I hear a lot about millennials.
You know what? When you said that pops up in the back of my head, but I don't want to bash on millennials, because I know I've met a lot of people in that age range that are, studious, hardworking, responsible, reliable, all the stuff that these millennials aren't supposed to be. So I won't even pin it to an age bracket, but pin it down to people that are, I don't know, just kind of very laissez-faire about their attitude, and kind of just don't really listen, and you might go through all your evaluations and exams and give them your advice, and they just kind of blow you off, because sometimes it seems like they think they know better or whatever. So if you want to pin that on the millennials, then we can. But I've seen some people that are much older than millennials to have that same attitude. So more of an attitude versus an age group, I would say.
What's been the greatest experience you've had since you've been around for so long? You've been in the industry for 30 years. What was something that touched you and has never left?
I've had a lot of really cool interactions with athletes that were like, it's pre-game time and they're not sure they can go, and we do some stuff with them and get them fixed up so they can play. Or I've had athletes come to me at the end of their career and say things like, because of the work you did with me, I think my career lasted another couple of years or whatever, which is a really, really big deal. But one of the stories that kind of sticks out the most was a patient, a gentleman about, oh goodness, he was probably about 85 years old. He came in just arthritic low back, couldn't move. It wasn't, no major nerve issues, no radiculopathy, none of those sorts of things, just a lot of pain and couldn't move. We did a little bit of work with him, probably not much. I mean, a couple weeks, and he came in at the end of probably, let's say, 2 weeks. I mean, just so excited, telling me that he put up the Christmas lights around his house for the first time in 15 years or something like that. So, I mean, that when somebody asks, what's one of your most memorable things? It's always this guy that was able to put up his Christmas lights because he hadn't been able to do it in like 10 years or 15 years or whatever it was. So it's more, it was more genuine, it was more real. Plus, he's not making $10 million a year, so it really touched me.
Wow, that's crazy. So, so how would your family and friends describe you outside of work?
Um, Probably too serious at times, but then there's this Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde thing where I can flip and go the complete opposite direction and be kind of out of control. So, to be honest, that'd be my best descriptor.
Yeah, what do you like to do? Like, what do you like to do when you're not working?
Yeah, travel. I like to work. I like to work out, just obviously to stay in shape, so I can still continue to work on people.
Like weightlifting?
Yeah, weightlifting. Make it well-rounded. Just like I tell my patients. I mean, at least cardio, at least some sort of cardio, 20, 30 minutes, 4 or 5 times a week. I like to do weight training where you divide out the body parts and kind of work each body part at least a couple times a week. Like to go to like to spend time at the ocean. Do paddleboarding. There's all the stuff you do there. So that's some of the biggest things I enjoy doing.
So what's your greatest passion in life?
I'm lucky enough. A lot of the, for example, when I went into practice, I set out to to have a successful practice, but I also, my main reason for going into chiropractic, I wanted to work with athletes. I've been able to achieve that on a pretty high level. So from a professional standpoint, I've kind of, for lack of a better term, I'll say pulled off a lot of the stuff that I want to get done. So, I'd like to stay in shape and continue to practice for a while longer. And then, hopefully, mentor some people along the way. And once again, I don't mean to sound all hokey and corny, but give back and do all the stuff we're supposed to do.
Are you really into sports?
Yeah. My favorite sport is football, and I don't work with any football teams. Almost did, but don't work with any football team. But still, whatever with athletes, whatever their sport, whatever they do, whatever their individual skill is, or just helping them fine tune things and hopefully keeping them more comfortable, allowing them to perform at the highest level they can perform. I mean, granted, it's athletes that's doing most of it, but if we can even do some stuff that kind of tweaks them or fine tunes them a little bit, I get a pretty big kick out of that. My bread and butter is my general practice, which is what's cool about that is I get to learn all this stuff with all these different teams and different docs and trainers and this and that, and take the stuff that I learn and apply it to the general population, which is.
What would your best piece of advice for maybe a high school or college athlete that wants to go pro? What would your best piece of medical advice be for them?
The first thing that comes to mind, and maybe not so much college, but younger athletes, high school athletes, we're seeing a lot of these athletes these days, these young athletes, and some of it's driven by their parents. They only do one sport, and they do it year round. I don't care if it's football, you can't do that, but definitely baseball, basketball, track and field. Some of these sports, they're just doing one thing and they're doing it year round. And long story short, they're not, fully developing themselves as an athlete. Number one, because they're not doing other skills. You just kind of fine tune their whole athletic being, so to speak. And they're doing the same, for the most part, doing the same movements, the same things over and over and over. So they're breaking things down easier, using a muscle or a joint or a tendon in the same manner over and over, and they get overuse syndrome and break things down, and they have some long-term problems from that. Before the Major League season started this year, I was at a baseball conference and the medical director for Major League Baseball was speaking. They're having just a ton of what they call UCL, ulnar collateral ligament, which is the ligament on the inside of the elbow. just lots of damage, and they thought they could catch this, detect this when they're in the major leagues, and do some things to correct it, fix it, and they go back college, and I'll go back high school, going all the way. They have to make changes all the way back into little league. Observing the appropriate, like for a pitcher, for example, observing the appropriate pitch counts, making sure they're getting the correct rest. So, I mean, you can apply that to other areas where these young athletes are just doing too much too early, doing the same thing over and over and over, not getting appropriate rehab, rest, all those kinds.
You would suggest that they play multiple sports?
Yeah, stay more well-rounded from an athletic standpoint, and also make sure they're getting some breaks. I mean, there's these kids playing the same sport year-round, and they're breaking down, and they're burning out too, some of them. So that'd be one of the best pieces of advice I think I could give them. Other than they got to be really good to make it, which there's not. Some of that's genetics, so that's a whole different issue.
So where can viewers learn more about you?
Probably my best, the best area would be just my website, just drmontehessler.com.
Awesome. Thanks for doing this interview with me.
You're welcome. Enjoy it.